Before we delve into this wonderful story, subscribe to our channel, activate the notification bell, and give us a like so we can upload daily episodes. Thank you. Enjoy the show. In the kingdom of Avalonia, located where clouds embrace the icy mountain peaks, Princess Ileana was not like other princesses who confined themselves to life behind velvet walls. Instead, her spirit was forged from the wind's tempest and the rock's resilience. She loved to sneak into the forbidden forests surrounding their ancient castle, despite her father the king's constant warnings. On a stormy night, when thunder clashed and the sky ignited with flashes of lightning, Eliana watched the dark forest's edge from her high room's balcony. Then she caught sight of something strange breaking the night's darkness. It was a white specter stumbling and falling at the edge of the castle moat. Because her heart was her only guide, she didn't hesitate for a moment to put on her dark woolen cloak and sneak through the secret passages she knew by heart, ignoring the harsh rain that whipped her face like scourges. When she reached the location, she found a huge creature, neither entirely a wolf nor an ordinary dog. It was a majestic wild dog with silver fur stained with blood and mud, whimpering with a heartbreaking sound. A strange arrow with black feathers had pierced its left shoulder. As soon as she approached, it bared its fangs in a desperate attempt to defend itself. But Eliana knelt down, slowly extending her hand while whispering reassuring words. Despite the terrible pain racking the dog's body, it felt the sincerity of her intentions, surrendered, and its heavy head fell into her hands. With great difficulty, she managed to drag him to an abandoned woodcutter's hut located within the castle's back walls. There, she began a secret journey to heal him, using herbs she had read about in ancient sages' books. She named him Rod, Thunder, for his strength and resilience. But she did not know that this dog was not just an injured animal. He was the guardian of the Gate of Specters, who was injured during the escape of a dark and evil entity. And the wound he carried was the beginning of a curse that would affect the entire kingdom. Days passed, and the dog Rod slowly recovered, and a bond transcending human language grew between him and the princess. He looked at her with golden eyes glowing with sharp intelligence and deep gratitude. But the calm did not last long. On a foggy morning, the kingdom awoke to the shouts of guards as a suffocating black aura surrounded the castle, blocking sunlight. Strange shadow-like creatures began to materialize from nothing and attack the surrounding villages. The king fell ill with a mysterious disease that turned his veins black. Eliana learned from the chief sage that this black magic originated from the Valley of Ash, and that the only cure lay in the flower of flame, which only grew in the heart of that cursed valley. When Eliana decided to go out to save her father and her kingdom, Rod stood before her, and despite his slight limp, he refused to let her go alone. His massive body emitted a strange energy whenever shadows approached, as if he were a living radar sensing danger. They set off together under the cover of darkness, bypassing the guards, to begin a perilous journey. No sooner had their feet touched the ground of the forbidden forest than the earth began to tremble, and from among the entangled trees, a group of shadow wolves emerged, bloodless creatures with burning ember eyes surrounding the princess and the dog. Here, the scene transformed into a real battlefield. Eliana's blood ran cold as she saw the fangs approaching, but Rudd did not back down. Instead, he let out a resounding howl that shook the place and lunged with lightning speed despite his old injury, tearing at the shadows with his fangs that glowed with a strange, faint blue light. Eliana fought with her small dagger, protecting Rod's back while he protected her life. The fight was fierce and bloody. The creatures were relentless, and for every one they defeated, 2 more appeared. In a critical moment, a huge shadow wolf leaped towards Eliana's neck, but Rudd intercepted its path with his body, taking a powerful blow that knocked him to the ground. Eliana screamed his name, and with an uncharacteristic rage, she pulled an arrow from the quiver of a fallen attacker and plunged it into the beast's eye, giving them a chance to escape. Eliana ran, and the dog ran beside her, panting heavily, blood flowing from his new wound, but he did not stop. They were running towards the old stone bridge that connected the forest to the Valley of Ash. The bridge was dilapidated, and beneath it was a deep valley filled with fog. As soon as their feet touched the bridge, it began to crack, and the monsters were right behind them. In a breathtaking scene, Eliana and Rod made the final leap towards the rocky edge on the other bank as the bridge collapsed behind them, sending the monsters plunging into the abyss. Eliana fell onto the grass, panting, and approached Rod to check his wounds. He looked at her as if telling her that the pain didn't matter, only that she was safe. But the journey was not over. The valley before them was desolate, its ground gray and barren, with toxic fumes rising from it. They ventured into the valley, where the heat was unbearable, and every step required immense effort. Suddenly, the valley's guardian appeared before them, the stone golem, a giant made of solidified lava, its eyes piercing the soul. It stood before the path leading to the Flower of Flame. There was no escape. Eliana looked at Rod and saw a plan in his eyes. The dog began barking and running around the giant, using his speed and agility to distract the slow monster, while Eliana climbed the side rocks to reach a higher point. The giant pounded the ground with its fist, sending rocks flying like projectiles. Rod was hit by one of the splinters in his good leg, stumbled, and fell. The giant raised its massive foot to crush him. At that moment, from atop the rock, Eliana jumped, holding a flask of oil she had brought with her, and threw it at the giant's face, then followed it with a small torch. The stone giant's face burst into flames, making it stagger and scream with a sound like grinding mountains. Eliana seized the opportunity and ran towards Rod, helped him up, and together they headed towards a small cave gleaming with a red light inside. There they found the Flower of Flame, but the surprise was the presence of the black sorcerer who had caused all this devastation. He was waiting for them. The sorcerer laughed coldly and said, "Did you think a pampered princess and a limping dog could defeat me?" He raised his magic staff and began murmuring incantations that made the air heavy. Eliana felt suffocated and fell to her knees. But Rod, despite all his wounds and the blood covering his silver fur, stood tall. Suddenly, the blue glow that had previously appeared on his fangs began to cover his entire body, and his shape changed. He grew in size, and spectral wings of light sprouted from him. Rod was indeed an ancient guardian spirit, and his loyalty to Eliana and her sincere love for him were what unleashed his dormant powers. Rod lunged at the sorcerer with the speed of light, not to kill him, but to shatter the magic staff from which he drew his power. A fierce struggle ensued between black magic and the guardian's light. Sparks flew and filled the cave. Meanwhile, Eliana crawled towards the flower, carefully pulling it out. As soon as she touched it, she felt a warm energy flow through her veins. She turned to throw the flower towards Rod, who was struggling with the sorcerer. Rod caught the flower in his mouth, and a blinding bright light ignited. The sorcerer screamed, his body vanished and turned into ash, and the cave fell silent. Rod returned to his natural dog form, but he was completely exhausted. Eliana approached him with tears of joy and fear, held his head, and kissed his forehead. The flower in her hand began to glow, and she knew what she had to do. She did not use the flower for herself, but placed its petals on Rod's deep wounds, which healed as if they had never been there, and a strong pulse returned to his body. Then she took the remaining nectar of the flower in a small flask for her father. The journey back was less dangerous as the black clouds dissipated with the sorceress' death. When Eliana reached the castle, everyone was astonished by her safe return with this majestic beast. She rushed to her father's room and gave him the flower's nectar. In moments, color returned to his face, and he opened his eyes. Joy filled the kingdom, and celebrations were held. But Eliana was not interested in the celebrations. Instead, she sat in the royal garden beside Rud, who had become her personal guardian and a symbol of courage in the kingdom. No one looked at him as a stray dog or a monster anymore, but as a hero who saved everyone. Eliana realized at that moment that true strength lay not in a sword or magic, but in the loyalty and sacrifice that united the heart of a brave princess and the spirit of a loyal dog. They would remain together, guarding the kingdom from any future danger, in a story told for generations about the friendship that conquered darkness. The end.